Good evening and welcome to FTB Sport. After what an eventful weekend, we're going to talk about. I have Dan the Canary, as I build him, wanting to talk about, busting to talk about. I don't know where you're going to start, Dan. New manager, second win of the season. But anyway, before we do. So, if you're watching and you like the show, please share it with your mates, push it onto Twitter, like it, of course, on YouTube, and send us comments, no matter how outrageous, yeah? So, Dan, you well?
Good. Yeah, very good. Much better than I was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah?
As a football fan.
Yeah, good. So, I've just... so we can start on our first game. Sorry, my screen froze for a little bit there. And what an exciting weekend. I'm going to not quite put Norwich on first because we have to go really to the first game of the weekend, which was that Chelsea game. And there's me thinking, I thought, yeah, Chelsea were at Leicester. Yeah, Chelsea might drop some points, There's, Brendan Rodgers, the great white hope, maybe he'll manage at United or this and that and the other. And they got a kick in, and I think they're now in like 16th place or something. Rodgers the team's getting booed off the field, and suddenly Rodgers is looking dodgy. Leicester 0, Chelsea 3. Rudiger, Kante, Pulisic, with Chilwell, who's playing really well back now there, and James. I mean, he can't keep those two lads out of the action. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the statistics for the game, Chelsea 62% possession, 16 shots, 7 on target, away to Leicester, who should be really a top 5-6 team as well. I know there's been a lot of talk about Rodgers and Man United, and you just wonder whether that's maybe hurt Leicester a little bit, or just Chelsea just that good at the moment. I think it's a bit of both. I've got to be honest with you. Chelsea are really good. I think that the thing with Chelsea is their wing backs are really flying at the moment. You mentioned Chilwell on fire, and James on.
James, yeah.
And Chilwell's keeping Alonso out of the team. Liqueta, I can never say his name properly, but I know he's injured at the moment. But I mean, James is making a case for him not to return, and he's the captain. So, I mean, I think that's where they're getting their success. And then you've got Kante in the middle, who would have been fired up. Chilwell would have been fired up against their old team as well. So, playing some good football, Chelsea.
And not even, I'm being without a £97 million player up front. Bonkers, eh? Mind you, City were without a £100 million player, and isn't there. So, but boy, it would take a brave man not to bet on Chelsea winning the league, wouldn't it?
I mean, defensively, how many goals have they conceded this year? 3, 4. I mean, they're defensively really tight as well. So they've got it all at the moment. Just a really good team. Tuchel's got them playing tight, but also good football as well, not like boring 1-0s and stuff.
I've never been a Rudiger fan. I always find him a little awkward on the ball, a little ungainly. His feet aren't good enough, and yet he must have Chelsea absolutely over a barrel now for his new contract, because obviously the defense is tight. The league title is within grasp. You don't want to rock the boat and see him go in January. He must be rubbing his hands with glee. His accountant must be frothing at the mouth. And yet, I don't see him even in the top 10 centre backs in the Premier League. No,
he's just. The crowd love him as well. As soon as he gets the ball anywhere between the sort of halfway line and the box, they all start shouting "shoot" him, because he likes to have a pop as well. But he's a strong, he's athletic, he likes pushing forward as well. I mean, he's everything that I'm sure Harry Maguire wished he was at the moment. But we'll come on to that.
Yeah, popular. We'll come on to that. And you've got to stay. I know you're on limited time tonight, Dan, but you've got to stay for the Man U game as well.
Definitely.
Brilliant video. There's a guy, Mr. B, who's one of the anchor guys on the Man United channel. And he was on fire this weekend. But you've got to see this video in a bit. But anyway, here you go. Let's talk about Norwich 2, Southampton 1. Your man Pookie opening the scoring. But more importantly, new manager. Was he your choice? Second win of the season, off the bottom, and actually within striking distance of getting out of the bottom three.
I know. I mean, I was talking about Lampard, and Lampard was favourite at a point, and I thought he'd be really good for the team. You know, the connection with Billy Gilmore, get the midfielders having a pop. As we said, Lampard's one of the top 5 or 6 goal scorers in the Premier League history with about 170, 180 goals. Can't remember how many, but, you know, he's just got a good attacking mind. But then when Dean Smith came up, I suddenly thought, actually, he's probably better for Norwich than Lampard in the fact that he'll stick around. And if Norwich don't survive, he's got the pedigree to get Norwich back out of the Championship for a third time in 5 years. But I mean, look, he only had 2 days with the team, so you can't really say that he's had a huge influence. The thing he did is he brought Cantwell and Gilmore back in. I can understand why Farke didn't put Cantwell in. I think Cantwell can be quite temperamental. I went to see Norwich against Leicester, and when Norwich equalised 2-2 and Cantwell was offside, he behaved like a petulant child for the rest of the game, and he has that tendency, I'm afraid, and I can see why Farke keeps him out of the team. Gilmore, I'm not so sure why. He's always played well when I've seen him play, and he was probably man of the match from a Norwich perspective yesterday.
Wow, that's good.
And Norwich got stuffed for the first half, but I suppose that was the first half that Dean Smith could watch them play football and understand their shape and their pitfalls. And they were the better team after the second half. I mean, Ben, who we both know well, is a season ticket holder, goes to pretty much every game. He said it was the best he's seen Norwich play all season, the second half. So, you know, you've got to trust Ben's perspective on that.
Yeah. I mean, I watched the Spurs Leeds game late this afternoon. I was just saying to Shane earlier that, I mean, I don't know what Kante said to them in the half time, just like Dean Smith, but they were a different team in the second half. Certainly, he must have had a word with the left back Everton and Emerson, whatever his name is, who got skinned by Jack Harrison for the first goal. But there you go. We'll come on to that in a minute. But sorry. By the way, I've got to say, do you like my Christmas jumper?
Yeah, I mean it's not one I'd be wearing, but you know, I'm actually wearing my Norwich goalkeeper top tonight, which I wear. I normally play on Monday nights 5-a-side, but yeah, wearing the Norwich top.
Is Angus going to make an appearance this season?
I think he might. I mean, Krul's playing well though, isn't he? I mean,
quid to sit in Norwich reserves. I mean, Norwich don't have 10 million quid to burn in the reserves.
No, it'd be interesting. I suppose at this level, you need to have a good reserve goalkeeper, don't you?
10 million at Norwich.
10 million at Norwich, yeah, true.
True. 10 million went into midfield, or?
I mean, they spent a lot of money, Norwich, but maybe they just build a squad. Maybe it's Krul's last season. You know, we don't know conversations they've had, and then Gunn's going to step in. But I mean, Krul's playing well at the moment from a shot-stopping perspective. He has his moments in terms of playing out, but as a shot-stopper, he's probably one of the best in the Prem still.
Let's keep going. We'll do a couple more games, and then we'll settle at Man United, and you can have your swan song and leave if you like. Hey.
I'm ready to keep going.
Newcastle. There was 2 massive 3-3 draws. The first one at Newcastle 3, Brentford 3. Our man Tony, and I was reading because Tony at Brentford started at Newcastle, and Newcastle sold him to, I think, Peterborough for like £2.50 in a bag of boiled sweets or something, and he ends up at Brentford now, looking like a £25 million player. Lascelles opening the scoring for Newcastle as captain, but they've gone bottom. And Norwich second bottom. Can Newcastle, and I know they'll have the rest of the Premier League clubs wishing them away down to the Championship, will they stay up?
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be difficult because even when they buy some players potentially in January, I mean, you need a bedding in periods. I mean, do you remember when Villa came up a couple of years ago and they spent a hell of a lot of money and they just didn't fire for the first half, and then it started connecting and they managed to stay up? But it's asking a hell of a lot. And I mean, Newcastle
Villa again. Yeah, this season Villa.
Yeah, same. But I mean, yeah, Newcastle, 2 games time, they're playing at home to Norwich. I mean, you've got to say as a Newcastle fan, if they don't beat Norwich at home, you're going to worry about their future in the Premiership this season. Because, you know, if Norwich beat them, that's their closest rival going suddenly sort of 5-6 points clear, depending on what the results are like next week as well. So 6 points is a lot of.
I guess you'd rather go there before the January transfer window, though.
Oh God, yeah.
You're right. Betting in 4 or 5 players. I mean, look at Arsenal. I mean, Arsenal early in the season were basket case. City hammered them. And okay, can you take yesterday or whether yesterday's game out of the equation? The last run for Arsenal, they've looked terrific. I'll come on to that later because I have some views on the international break, and I think there's a pattern. When the international break is there for 2 weeks and the top teams lose all their players all around the world, etc., when they come up against some of the teams who've hardly had to send any players away and they're super fresh, there can be surprises. And I'm going to come to that because when I watched Saka and Smith Rowe for Arsenal, I thought they looked tired, after that break, and yet some of the players they were playing against who hadn't had that break look fresh. And the weekend kicked off weird, not in the UK, but Bayern Munich lost a team in their bottom 3. I mean, when does that ever happen? Surely that's got to be an international break legacy, because that team in the bottom 3 of the Bundesliga will have no players on international duty.
Yeah, it's momentum as well, isn't it? I mean, if you keep winning week in, week out, you get into a rhythm and how you set yourselves up in the international break. I mean, I must admit, I'm not a big fan of international football, apart from the major tournaments. And I just think it breaks up what's a great league at the moment and a highly competitive Prem. I mean, it's almost pains me that we go onto these international breaks because the Premiership is so good. I mean, 36 goals, I think there was this weekend. I mean, brilliant. I should have put the cartoon up.
There was a great cartoon with a picture of Harry Kane with a box of Crayola pencils. And it said Harry Kane picking up his Man of the Match award for his game against San Marino.
Yeah.
Right, next game. The much fancied West Ham, again, going great guns. They did have a lot of players away on international, getting beaten at ever-improving Wolves. At one stage, I thought Wolves were wobbly, but now look at them.
First 3 games they were, weren't they?
As Brighton and clubs like that head the opposite direction, it's Wolves going up.
Yeah, they're 6th in the league. Level, a better goal difference than Arsenal, who are 1 point ahead and have been on an amazing run. Level with Tottenham, 2.7. I mean, I think they lost their first 3 games, and I think everyone was questioning whether Nuno should have left, etc. But I mean, he's got his team. I forgot the manager's name now, but he's got them firing.
Yeah, no,
that well-known guy that we all know.
Someone will quiz in. So on the
Lager,
comments,
is it? Bruno Lager.
Who's the manager of Wolves? So there's a couple of comments here, Dan. I'll let you scroll while I just read these out. Good evening.
Kept it short and sweet.
Here's the comments. Okay. Chelsea doing well. Didn't think they dropped points as ego always gets in the way. Big ego gets in the way in big games. Also, terrible run since he's been linked with a Manchester United job.
Brendan Rodgers,
Yeah. So I think 007, who's been on the show before, is right. It's what we say, bigger ego. Since linked with the Man United job, and the wheels come off. Could be his demise. I worry for Rodgers' future out there.
And it didn't work for him at Liverpool, did it? And then Klopp came in, and it all changed very quickly. So,
so back at the ranch, what we were saying, we were talking about Wolves and Wolves heading in the right direction.
I don't know if you saw the highlights. Ian, did you see the highlights on Match of the Day? Because obviously we can't have the time to watch all the game, but from the highlights I was seeing, they were using the wings relentlessly and getting boxes, and we know Jimenez can head in from sort of anywhere between 6-12 yards, but I mean, actually he had a great strike from outside the box. I think they were saying stat was it's like his 3 out of his last 5 goals have been from outside the box, but they were just playing some great football, stretching the game against West Ham. West Ham did look a bit leggy, and I think it's just a bad day at the office for them, but Wolves were playing well, lovely little football, so and using the wings well, which I think we probably don't see enough actually. Liverpool do it well, but actually some of these smaller teams, if they can get that accuracy from the wings, it just puts defence under pressure.
Cool. I'm going to play one little shot, which I do each week, and then let's talk about, would you have ever envisaged, when you look before the game, Burnley 3, Palace 3? Come on.
1-0.
There you have it. 3 times they must have heard that at Burnley on Saturday. Did you ever envisage that? Did you think 3-3?
1-0, I would have had that. Either way, it would have been a tight game. 1-0, header, Messi goal. I thought it had been really tight. Would have envisaged that. But
it was all about headers and set pieces. Burnley, Palace scored, then 2 set pieces from Burnley. Benteke goal. But the guy that keeps coming back and back and back is this left-sided. I thought he was a left back to begin with, Cornet, who Burnley paid, which is a lot for Burnley. I think they paid about 15 million for him. And he was talked about all over Europe. I'm amazed he went to Burnley. But that guy, he scored another cracking goal. And brilliant left foot. And, left-sided players we know are not that easy to find. But this Burnley have found an absolute screamer in Cornet.
I mean, if it had been game last season, you knew that had 0-0 written all over it. With Hodgson doesn't have that expansive play. Palace actually, I suppose you can't say that about Palace this year because Vieira's got them playing some pretty football. But Burnley actually, maybe in the last 2 or 3 games, have started to be a bit more expansive as well. So actually, I suppose when you look at how the 2 teams have played in the last 2 or 3 games, maybe it's not so silly. But Burnley Palace, you never have 3-3 ever. I mean, you'd be mad if you ever put a bet on that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Dan, let's take it on to the Man United game again. If you didn't think it would be 3-3 Burnley Palace, we'll come on to the Man United game. Losing 4-1 at Watford. I want to play you an excerpt from the Man United Agenda show from last night, and I have to say, if Mr. B is anywhere out there, I take my hat off. You are a legend. Watch this. See if you feel like this. If on the day, say Norwich got relegated.
We've got about 30 seconds on what I can see.
Oh my fucking!
What, Mr. B? What?
We need to come off this stream. I'm going to. I swear to God, I thought I was mad before. I am fuck. This guy celebrating. Oh!
What's happened? Have they scored again?
It's 4-1.
Oh, what? You've got to be joking.
4-1. Is this ridiculous?
Oh dear God, please. Do you know what?
Oh, fucking hell.
Oh my.
That is just a fantastic piece of live viewing from the Man United Agenda when they're watching the game. You can just see they're distraught. They're all over the place. The horror of losing 4-1, not just 4-1 at Watford, but it's just again and again and again.
It's just
I have to say, okay, for the youngsters who've only ever seen Man City in the great days, they would probably not relate to that. They'd probably react in the same way. For me, if that happened, and it has happened, when City get worked over, because it doesn't seem that long ago that City regularly got worked over. I know it's a couple of decades. I probably wouldn't have feel as thrown myself out of a tower block window as Mr. B clearly did yesterday, and he's same with Norwich. But if you've never been used to it as a United fan, it must be mortifying.
I still maintain it, and I know I don't know whether I was upsetting your man when I came on last week and was talking about a couple of weeks ago when I said about Ronaldo, ruining the team. But I think he has. I think because they've lost all shape. They did have some sort of shape, and as I say, Bruno Fernandes had a role and stuff. And I think Ronaldo coming in has upset, and they need someone stronger than Solskjaer to manage all these superstars. And I think Ronaldo was just a bridge too far. So I'm not saying the team's not good. I just think him coming in was a further superstar, and with Pogba and everyone else, Solskjaer just didn't know how to format the team around him and or with or without him. I mean, you can't bring Ronaldo into a team and not play him either. So, I think that was a little bit his downfall, actually.
They had a review show earlier in the evening about obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got fired, and they're having a review and they were debating who should be the next manager. And some people were talking about Rodgers, and some people were talking about Rooney, or they maybe wish Gerrard had taken it or whatever. But I tell you what, I mean, there's not just Ronaldo to battle there. Imagine if you're a manager and you've not just got Ronaldo, but you've got Fergie at every game, strolling past the dressing room, walking past training, in the board meetings. Gee, if Man United is a pantomime, they are the widow twankies of Man United. Imagine walking in and having to deal with that on your shoulder. Even if you're Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he was miles too nice to deal with that. You've got to have an absolute twat of a manager to be able to put those two in their box. Ronaldo is employed. He is an employee. He is a player. He does what the manager says. And as for Ferguson, he has to stay out of my face. So a manager has to be able to have that. And I thought Van Gaal or Mourinho would have had the gravitas to be able to have that situation, but it still went wrong.
Look at Moyes as well. I mean, Moyes was trouble there. Moyes is a fantastic. If you look at what he did at Everton and look at what he's doing at West Ham, he clearly is a fantastic manager, and he couldn't get it working there. And you just wonder what it is about Manchester United, and maybe they just tell Fergie to stay away for a season and see what happens.
Oh yeah,
I would disagree with you.
They're gonna have to have a big dog, not a young pup in there.
Yeah, they are. Zidane, they're talking about.
Yeah, I hope. I don't know. He just seems a bit mentally fragile. He seems to lose, throw the toys out if the board interferes. I just hope he's, mentally strong enough to be able to handle it there. Talks about that. I think United should wait till the summer. They're going to have to patch up the leaky boat. Carrick and maybe a couple of other guys to patch up at the end of the season. And then they're going to have to really, really look, because they've got to make their ass call. Is it Tag from Ajax to build up a new United legacy? If it doesn't go right for Pochettino at Paris Saint-Germain, he's a good experienced manager. He's big enough to fit the bill. Or who also? Yeah, I mean, you've also got the World Cup coming up. Is there? I tell you, a manager who hasn't been mentioned was got the name escapes me. Who was the Jochen Low? He managed those big German superstars for all that period of time in the national team. As far as I know, he's not working.
No, I thought the Euros was his last tournament as German manager, wasn't it? So
yeah, I mean, he managed that German team and that big bunch of players, with all those Muller and the egos of those players, and won an enormous amount of tournaments. I just wondered whether it's got to be someone of that stature coming into United.
And the thing is with Man United, and you saying about patching up and stopping them, but you ordinarily say that if you don't finish top four, then you're not going to recruit the right people because people want Champions League football. But actually, Man United's a big enough team, and where actually players will join without having to worry about Champions League for a season. They'll join because it's Manchester United, Ronaldo's there, etc., etc. So, yeah, you're right. It's almost just get through this season, spend the right money in the summer, have a great manager that can build a team, and then hit the ground running come September or August, September next year.
As I did not ever want to say this, much as it pains me to say it, I'm a real admirer about what Wayne Rooney is doing at Derby. I mean, he started with only like 7 players on the books of the season. Everyone said they should have finished. I mean, I think it was today they won at Bournemouth. They're the bottom. They've had all those points taken away from them. They've got no players, and they can still beat Bournemouth. I don't know. I haven't looked at if there wasn't the point deduction where they would be. They certainly wouldn't be in the relegation.
No, they weren't. They wouldn't be. They'd be sort of.
But they came from the lowest point to begin with. They had 7 players on the books. How can he even compete in that league with what he had? So I have to take my hat off to Wayne Rooney. The fact is he stayed at Derby. The fact that he's still getting decent results at Derby with nothing, no money. I mean, who the hell would join Derby at this stage?
There was a big debate actually I was listening to on the radio yesterday, or I think it might have been Radio 5 Live, or whether it was another football show, but they were talking about Wayne Rooney and the job he's done there. And then someone sort of interjected and said, well, he's only won 4 out of 32 games. So is he that good, etc.? And, there was a big debate saying, look what he's had to take on. He managed to get them to survive last season against all odds. He's then had to put up with all of this administration, points deduction, etc. this season. Yet he keeps firing. And then to your point, they go and beat Bournemouth, who are running away with the league with Fulham this year. I mean, I think they were sort of, if they'd won, they'd have gone about 11 or 12 points clear of West Brom in third. They are a good team with Scott Parker, and they beat them.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even after a week with the points deduction. If you're okay for time, do you fancy one more game?
Keep going.
Right. Well, we got to talk about this. So Steven Gerrard goes to Aston Villa. Villa have, and it could well be just unlucky that it's taken longer with Buendia not fit early in the season, etc., to blend that Villa team together. You hear voices that you or me could win the league with Rangers in Scotland, which I think is a little derogatory to Scottish football. But from everything, I didn't watch the game. I read intently about the game, and they talked about him playing a Liverpool formation. And finally, he got Ings and Watkins up there playing together, and that's a pretty good result. Again, when I was looking at the stats, Brighton were right in it. I mean, Graham Potter said Brighton were in it till like the 80th minute.
They were.
That's a good win for a first step, isn't it?
Yeah, I think. I mean, look, Brighton, as I think you alluded to, had been sort of dropping down after having that sort of euphoric top four status for a few games. But as you said, they've been dropping. They had probably 2/3 of the possession, I think, but didn't really have that much in terms of shots and goal. And Villa just remains resolute. And then they had the bit of that Gerrard. Gerrard used to do that as a player, didn't he? Just pull a result out of nowhere for Liverpool, and his guys. And it's a fantastic goal by Ollie Watkins as well. Took it at pace, cut in on his right hand side and bent it into the top corner. And then Mings firing in for the second one, just to kill the game off. But
I mean, two great players.
Shearer was saying it's a great appointment, and he thinks Gerrard will be very successful there.
I think
it's a
he's
good
right.
club.
It's interesting when you look at the temperament of players who seem to make it as managers. Lampard was always the nicer guy. Gerrard was always more aggressive, darker, more moody, directional, let's just say. And obviously Wayne Rooney, again, was no shrinking violet, let's just say. I wonder if there's a pattern of mentality that we see as players on the pitch who then go on to be successful managers. And maybe the nice guys that we see on the pitch, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, was he ever going to be tough enough, directional enough, strong enough to be a manager in the Premier League? Is Frank Lampard, does he have that temperament? But when you look at Gerrard and Rooney as players, they were, incredibly aggressive. I would put in that category kind of Roy Keane, but I think he's mentally imbalanced. That's why he hasn't made a particularly successful manager, and he's better as a pundit because everyone likes watching, a bit of a circus, and he just spouts it. So you can't imagine working for Roy Keane. But those two, similar sort of steely determined players.
A bit like Vieira for Palace. Yes. It's the fact that Gerrard, like Vieira, was one of the top 3-5 players in his day. He was captain of Liverpool, won Champions League, was captain of England after Beckham in that slightly dodgy era, but he was still captain of England. And you're right. I mean, you look at his performances in at Rangers, but I think his players were getting sent off every other game. I mean, I think they had a lot of red cards, but basically, they were willing to die for him, and they toughened up. And I think that's what he'll do. He'll make Villa very hard to beat, and they'll challenge the balls. They might have the odd sending off, but people will fear playing them because they're going to get roughed up a bit like when you play Burnley and what have you. That people just think we're going to get roughed up and we need to be tough to play them. I think I totally agree with everything you said. I think he's brilliant. He's got that grit and determination, and people will listen to him. This is how you do it.
I don't think Tyrone Mings will take much encouragement to rough people up.
No, it's like
I would not like to meet him. On a dark night, he has that look in his eyes, doesn't he, Tyrone Mings? Like he wants to take your head off.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think he'd get into a fight at a sort of 6-year-old's tea party, wouldn't he? I mean, he just he's up for it.
But it'll be really interesting when I listened to the Man United agenda tonight, and they're right. There is this old guard of managers across Europe who are just fading off into the sunset, from Mourinho's and managers like that. And there is a new blood. If Vieira keeps going as he's going, if Rooney keeps going as he's going, if Gerrard keeps going as he's going, those three, they might have the steel and backbone to be, top 6 Premier League managers. Maybe they've got something that likes. I mean, I really like Graham Potter, and I like Farke at Norwich. But maybe they're too nice. They believe in playing beautiful football and lovely football, and you've got to respect them for that. And even Scotty Parker. But maybe maybe to be the best, you have to have a bit more steel than that.
Ruthless streak.
Yeah.
Well, who's the most successful manager in Premiership history? Is Fergie. And
yeah.
he had to do the thing. Who was it he subbed on and off in the same? And was it Luke Chadwick? He brought him on and then off in the space of about 20 minutes. But that was him. He was ruthless. He made a decision. No, it doesn't work. I'm changing it.
Guardiola as well. I mean, he's in your face all the time. He is pretty aggressive. When you watch that documentary, I think that's what it takes. And he was a bit like that as a player, But 2 more games, Dan. Do you fancy
go
2
for
more
it?
Games?
Absolutely.
Okay, then we got to go with Man City Everton. I was a little nervous going into this game, I have to say, if I have the first chat on this, because City had a lot of players on international duty. And I was going to talk about Arsenal, Liverpool. I haven't mentioned them yet. We'll come to them actually after this. I was concerned that because some of those players done a lot of miles, a lot of distance, and yet when you actually looked at the Everton team, they hadn't travelled as much. There was internet people who stayed at home there, and I thought there was an opportunity. And Grealish was injured, and De Bruyne is still not really properly fit, and
Foden was a little bit injured as well, wasn't he?
Sorry, De Bruyne's got COVID. Foden was injured, a little bit injured, but played, and Grealish is injured as well after internationals. But also, there were reports from Portugal about Bernardo Silva claiming about muscle cramps and being knackered and didn't want to. They subbed him out, and I was a little bit worried. But watching that City game, there was a very dubious penalty. City should have got it, but after that, I just thought Everton didn't have anything to give. I know they've got there's another team with Leeds. They've got a heck of a lot of injuries at Everton, but they were really limp, and yet you've got Benitez in there who's followed Andreotti into there. They've had 2 world-class managers, but nothing's happening really.
Be interesting to see what Rich thinks of this. I mean, Man City today had almost 80% possession. It was a canter again, like it was against Man United. If you just felt like they weren't ever out of sort of second or third gear and didn't have to be. And why would you bother? If you don't need to, 3-0 win. Thank you very much. Keep the players fresh and move on to the next week, and they'll have tougher ones to go. But I'd be interested to see Rich's thoughts on Everton, because they just, I don't know, they had a good start to the season, but it all just seems to be whimpering away. And what do they need to sort of get their season? I mean, is it? They had James last year, and he added a bit of bite. Richarlison's not playing well this year and seems distracted. Townsend had a good start, but he's been a bit quiet in the last week. You just don't sort of see where there's going to be game changers for them like there was last season.
Picked up an injury as well for them, which is really bad news. They're just not getting any luck at all.
On paper, they're a good team, aren't they? And it just doesn't seem to be clicking in. It would be interesting to see.
We'll move it along, Dan, because again, I know your time. We've got a penultimate game to talk about. Haven't talked about Liverpool thrashing Arsenal 4-0. I watched it last night. I think it was the late game yesterday afternoon, and I was about to, because I like the way Arsenal are playing. I think Arteta's got them playing really well. I'll come on to a comment bizarrely. And I was about to put a message on our banter group saying, Arsenal are in this still. Credit to Arteta. I never thought he'd get them to a level to compete with Liverpool at this stage in the season. And at that moment, I deleted it just after Liverpool scored their first goal. And then, they blitzed. They were wonderful. And my mum was watching the game with me. She's 86. And she said, she made this comment. And she's not an aficionado of football. And she makes some incredible comments. She still thinks, though, if you want to watch the reserve game when Foden was about 15, and she says, I told you that lad was going to do well. But she made a comment. She said Liverpool plays so much width, and yet Arsenal want to play it narrower. And every time Liverpool went wide, Arsenal got ripped apart. That's me 86, and she pointed that out as the way Liverpool got around them. Trent Alexander-Arnold was awesome. What a player! Better than he plays for England.
Yeah, I've sort of got my fancy team right now. I've got Cancelo and Oxlade, Trent Alexander-Arnold's in the back now, and Chilwell. I've got 3 of them in my back, so I feel sorted on my fancy team now. But I mean, another 2 assists yesterday. completely dominated in terms of possession. I'm just having a look at some of the stats here: 19 shots, 9 on target. Ramsdale was the man of the match from an Arsenal perspective because he pulled off some great saves. So it could have been 5 or 6, couldn't it?
I thought he should have held the first one though. He shouldn't have spilt it out. But
no, but then I suppose
sorry, the goal just before half time, whatever, he flapped it a bit, and then the one before, I thought he didn't have to spill. I know he made a great save from there, but it did. Anyway, maybe I'm being too critical. I do think he's England number 1 rather than Pickford. And I think he distributes the ball really well, and he's got good feet. I like him a lot.
Pickford's just mental. Although I suppose at Everton at the moment he's getting a lot of practice, like Ramsdale as well. So
he's just a bit of a panicker. But I mean, actually, on that subject, when you think about the Premier League, I mean, wow, we have got some fullbacks. I can't remember the glory. You know, you look at whether it's Walker or Alexander-Arnold or the 2 fullbacks now at Arsenal, Timiyasu. He was really good. Yeah, and then on the left, you got João Cancelo, you got Reguilon, who I thought played really great for Spurs.
Tierney for Arsenal's playing well.
Yeah, Tierney, Chilwell, Reece James. I know the 2 lads at United have gone off the ball, but there's some hellish fullbacks in the Premier League all the way through. It must be probably the strongest position, and far more than I've ever seen in the past that wing backs are dominating games.
I'd agree. It's. I mean, they call them wing backs, but I mean, really, they're sort of old-fashioned midfield. Wingers, aren't they? They're just. I mean, the amount of ground they cover as well. You've got to be the fittest player in the team to play in those positions, and they just constantly up and down, and they've got such a lovely touch to them as well. And they're scoring lots of goals this season as well. So it's not like they're even providing for your number 10s and 9s. They're actually getting into the mix and actually scoring a lot of goals as well. So
the Liverpool
it's exciting.
The Chelsea assists. Yeah.
Who do you think? I mean, obviously we've talked about the real front runners. I know we're going to come on to Leeds, Tottenham, but neither of those teams will be in the mix-up. But I mean, is it a 3-horse race now, or do you think there's a 2-horse race?
Liverpool, City, and Chelsea are looking really on fire. There's not much between. So yes, I would say I think it's a 3-horse race, and then I think that 4th place. United could turn it around. I think Arsenal have got some decent momentum. Conte could be a surprise, pushing Spurs back up into that position. I can't really see another of the up and coming teams getting into that place. I think that's about it. If you're going to, I thought you were going to ask me who do I think is going to go down. Actually, I bloody don't know. In the bottom 3, you've got Newcastle with a bag of money to spend. You've got Norwich with a new manager and a bit new steel that could fight their way out. And then you've got Burnley, who even though they've been in the bottom 3 all this season, don't look like they're going to go down. And they never look as though they're going to go down. And then you get these the clubs like Villa were dropping and now on the way back up. Brighton were at the top and they're plummeting back downwards. Southampton, Leeds. I don't know what. And then there's Watford. I
think Brentford will get something.
One week they look like world beaters, and the next week they look like basket cases.
I think Brentford look like they're running out of gas already. Like they've had their peak. I don't know. I think Brentford will get pulled into it quite quick. I mean, they're only about 4 points ahead of Norwich now. And look, I mean, if you compared to the 2 things, Norwich win a game this weekend and Brentford don't, there's nothing between them. And yet you'd say that Brentford have had a fantastic season so far. So it just shows how tight it is, doesn't it?
There's going to be big decisions in January as well. If you're Brentford's board, if you're Norwich's board, Southampton's, if you're a variety of those teams' boards, you're thinking, do I spend 20 mil on a couple, 2, 3 more new players who we may end up in the Championship? And if you're those players, would you join one of those clubs because they're bound to want to put in your contract, half your wages if we go down clause? I think it's going to be challenging for those clubs.
Yeah, or that you could just get a decent loan signing. Someone who maybe is not getting much game time at Chelsea or Liverpool or something, just to come into the team and get some practice. Like who's the guy who plays Nico? Is it Nico Williams plays wing back for
Yeah.
Liverpool? But
Yeah.
I mean, he'd be a great loan. And we're talking about wing backs. He'd be
Klopp
great
says he
loan.
wouldn't loan him, but look at Gallagher. Look at Gallagher at Palace.
He's amazing.
Player of the season.
Yeah, I saw that Tuchel wants to speak to him now, just sort of talk about his future. I was like, I bet he does. I bet he does.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I think there's also interesting loans for players who are going to be out of contract in the summer who aren't intending to sign. I'm thinking like Jesse Lingard here. But also there could be some bargains around for those players. But if you're, let's say maybe Jesse Lingard is a step too far, but if you're if you're a talented young player over in the middle of the division, you wouldn't want to join a Norwich or a Southampton or a Brentford permanently. You'd want to take a loan and then see what happens at the end of the season, I guess.
Yeah. And actually, you'd probably get it like you did with West Ham, but I mean, actually, like a Southampton or a Villa or somewhere like that, where you'll get good game time, but with a team that will score goals and you can make a difference. I mean, yeah, he'd be brilliant. And he played brilliantly for West Ham last year as well. I do like him actually as a player, Lingard. I think he's very underrated.
Yeah. There was talk of like Ross Barkley going on loan or leaving Chelsea. I think he's got to make his name because there's a World Cup to play for next winter.
Yeah, they need game time, don't they? You're right.
They're going to need game time. Gareth Southgate has already shown, whether if you're not getting into your first team, whether you're at Chelsea or Man United, you're not getting in the England squad. So, the other nations are going to think something similar. Or otherwise, you've got to be a fullback for Villa and somehow mysteriously end up playing for Poland, like Matty Cash or whatever, which I thought was a bit bizarre, really. When I hear an interview for him, he doesn't sound any more Polish than you and me. But there you go, a bit tenuous. But I tell you what, actually talking about players who recently joined and nationally, did you see the goal that Antonio of West Ham scored for Jamaica? Whoa, what a sculpture! No. It was a blinder of a goal. And you could clearly see he was really happy playing for Jamaica. I think Jamaica would be really good value in the coming World Cup and the qualifiers there, because I think they're actually mounting some quite good players. I bizarrely watched it somewhere, and I quite enjoyed the game. Last game of the day, and then we're out. Oh, so I just want to play one other scribe. This was again part of Mr. B's show last night when he then did an end of the evening one, and lots of people watching him going bananas. And there was this fantastic comment on there from this guy Anthony Herbert, who said, "I've stayed up late and refused sex with the missus to watch this. Mr. B ain't going to bed." It's a great picture of Mr. B, and it's like the comment of the weekend, because Mr. B is so captivating in his the way he's. I think he just epitomises every United fan's despair about how it's gone down. What a guy. Last game of the weekend, and I did watch this. Tottenham Leeds, game of two halves, as they always say. Maybe a game of ears being boxed in the dressing room. It was a fantastic first goal by Leeds, but I tell you what, Conte must have. I would not have wanted to be, what is his name, Emerson, going into that dressing room at half time, having got skinned by Jack Harrison down that side, nutmegged, a magnificent ball across by Jack Harrison, and a lovely flowing goal. But after that, I didn't think Leeds were in it, and Tottenham went for it, and they could have had more. When they hit the post, and Harry Kane was 1-on-1, and he was so unlucky not to score. Tottenham have got it. They just seem to need to somehow flick a switch every game to turn it on.
Yeah, I mean, Mourinho got them playing some beautiful football at the beginning of last season, didn't he? And got Son and Kane partnership firing up, the best partnership in the whole of Europe.
I know. They always turned up against City.
And then it just has all turned sour, and I think Conte's got a big job to do there. But, was it a draw last week, a win this week? Behind Norwich in the form table for the last two games, which must be disappointing for them. As are Chelsea and Liverpool and West Ham. I mean, you know they're going to get better than where they are now under Conte. He's not there to make up the numbers. And actually, I was reading on BBC Sport that the fans were absolutely loving it. I mean, just his passion when the final whistle, he got the whole crowd behind him. They're obviously loving
conducting the orchestra. He was going bananas, and then he did his classic run when they scored. Yeah, he's another Panto character, isn't he? And I think I think Spurs will have a good next 18 months.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. I'm not sure what will happen after that because he tends to be a manager who seems to implode a little bit. But yeah, I think.
What about Leeds? Do you think Leeds are a risk this year?
Yeah, I think there's a second season problem in Leeds. Yes, they look unfortunately like they're doing a little bit of a Sheffield United. But to be fair, and no one ever remembers it though, they've had horrific injury problems across Leeds. The team's almost unrecognisable. But no one remembers that when you get relegated. Marcelo Bielsa, by the way, I've been told he lives in a 2-bedroom apartment over a dry cleaners in Wetherby. I don't know how true that is, but I can kind of believe it. Anyway, that's awesome.
Yeah, a bit like Ted Lasso will just come down and grab his coffee and sort of. That's a great program, that one. But yeah, just that sort of very authentic style to his, in the way he just conducts his life. I can imagine him doing that.
Cool, Dan. It's been a pleasure. So, what a weekend of football! Just what a weekend of football. I was going to finish it, with my video, etc. But I have to finish the weekend with Mr. B's video. Just. Every fan goes through this. Let's just watch it again for a short while. Every fan goes through this.
Gone. We've got about 30 seconds on what I can see.
Oh my fucking!
What, Mr. B? What?
We need to come off this stream. I'm going to. I swear to God, I thought I was mad before. I am fuck. This guy celebrating. Oh!
Genius.
Just class broadcasting. You got to hand it to him. That's football. That's the beautiful game. So to everybody and everyone who's watched the show tonight, like us, share us, tell your mates, subscribe, and have a good evening, Dan. Have a good week. And,
I'll come back on again if we beat Wolves next week.
Yeah, that's the deal. Every time Norwich win, you've got to come onto the show. I think United have got to go to Chelsea next weekend, haven't they? But football's a funny old game, isn't it? It is a strange game. I'm still not going to put any money on United, but football is a funny old game.
It is, yeah. You can see you later.
Have a good evening.
Bye.